Hello and welcome to our sixth session in this modifier section, and in this session we are going to cover the remaining three modifiers in the generate category, and they are the volume to mesh, solidify and the wireframe modifier. So to begin with, I will come to Blender and I am starting with a new file and I have my default cube here. I will right now press yes and I will press 3 to scale it up by 3 times. Then I will press tab and I will come into the vertex selection mode. I will select this vertex, press X and I am going to delete the vertex. So now you can see that I am seeing 3 walls here. So now whenever you want to build some model with an isometric view, we can consider these 3 as 2 walls and the floor here. So when we are going to use this as a 2 walls and the floor, as of now, if you observe this model, if I come over to overlay and if I switch on face orientation, you can now see that you have the normals moving towards the outside, but inside you doesn't have the normal. So you will have the issue when you are going to add materials and lights. So now to add normals on both the sides, we have to add one more face or surface here. And to add this, we are going to make use of the Solidify modifier. So now I will press tab and come into the object mode and I am going to name this cube as walls, and I am now going to come into my modifier and in add modifier generate, I am now going to add a Solidify modifier. So when I add the Solidify modifier, you can now see that the face orientation of the normal is right in all the sides now. So I will come back here and I am going to switch off this face orientation, and now in this case, to see this better in the solid viewport shading, I will come here, I will choose matte cap, I will click here and I will select the studio light here. You have 2 modes, simple and complex. So in simple mode, say for example, I will increase the thickness here, and as I increase the thickness, you can now see that this is in the simple mode, but if I change it to complex mode, you have 3 options here. One is the constraint, another is fixed, see this is the fixed one, and the third is even. So I have the 3 options here, and if I come back to simple, now in simple I can now set this thickness and you have one option here, even thickness. So when I enable even thickness, you can see that this is evenly placed here, and next you have the option fill here, and if I switch off the fill, you can now see that these 2 blocks are visible to me as 2 pieces and this entire area is open. Say for example, if I reduce this, I can create 2 copies of this wall which is present one above the other, and you have no fill in this portion. So here there are no fills, this is open. Now if I enable fill, these things will be covered, and you have another option here, only rim, and when I enable only rim, you can see the inside portion is now cut off and it is open now. So if I increase the thickness and see it, see now this is a cut portion through which I can see inside. Okay, so now I will switch off this only rim and I will set the thickness to around 0.01 and I will add a small thickness to it like this. I will come into wireframe mode and then I will press tab and come into edit mode, and now I will press Ctrl R and horizontally I will add 2 cuts, and I will left click and then right click to place it exactly at the center. Now similar to this, I will press Ctrl R and I will add 2 cuts here, left click and right click. Similarly Ctrl R and I will add 2 cuts here, and only in this case I will just click once and then I will drag it and place it slightly over here. Instead of center, I will move it over here and leave it. Now I will come into face selection mode and I am going to select this face and I am now going to press X and I am going to delete the face. And if I come into solid state mode, now you have a opening here which we are going to use it as our window. Come into wireframe mode, I will press tab and in the edit mode with face selection I will select these two faces. Now press X and I will delete the faces. Now if I press tab and come into object mode and in solid mode, now you have a door here and a window over here. I will press numpad 3 and come into the side view. Then I will press tab and in the wireframe mode I will come into edge selection. I will alt click and select the edge around the window like this. Then I will press shift D and I will duplicate it and right click and place it at the same position. Then I will press P and I am going to separate this as a new object. Now I will press tab and come into object mode and in the outliner I am going to call this as windows. Select with this windows selected, I will press tab and A to select all these edges. I will come into vertex selection mode. I will press F to fill this. Then I will come into face selection and I will select this face here. I have to click at the center to select this face. Then I will right click and choose subdivide and I will open subdivide here and I will subdivide it 3 times like this and I am now going to press tab. Come into the solid state, select this window and I will come into add modifier and I am now going to add the wireframe modifier. And when I add this wireframe modifier, then immediately you can now see that this wherever I had my mesh wireframe, that has been converted into a surface with thickness. See, you are seeing this surface with the thickness. So now I can control this thickness in the wireframe here. I can make it thicker like this or lesser like this. Now when I am adding this, I have both solidify and wireframe. So I will delete off solidify, it is not required, and using this thickness I can add the thickness like this and create a kind of window as you see here. So I can create the window here and you can see this how this window has been created. Now similarly, if I can also offset it outside or inside like this, I will set this value as of now to 0 and you have the boundary option so that it is limited within the boundary, and you have the option replace original, and when I enable replace original, the inside mesh will not be visible, and if I switch it off, now you can see the inside mesh is visible. So right now I will enable replace original, and in thickness you have even, and if I switch it off, other option I have is relative, and I can either use relative and set the thickness, or I can switch off both and I can set it directly like this. So I will, or I will enable even here, and I am going to set a thickness of about 0.06 for this. So now I have my window structure ready. To convert any of the wireframe into a renderable polygon, we are going to use this wireframe modifier. I will press numpad 1, come into the front view, select this, press tab, and now I will come into edge selection mode and I am going to alt click and select this door edges here. I will come into wireframe mode. So I have selected this door edges, I will press shift D and I will make it as a separate object, right click and then now I am next going to press P and I am going to separate this. I will press tab and come into object mode, and here in the scene collection in the outliner I am going to call this walls 001 now as doors, and then selecting this door I will press tab and come into the edit mode. Now here I will come into vertex selection mode, select, see if I fill this as it is, this is going to be an n-gon. So to avoid this n-gon, I am going to now select this vertex and this vertex, press X, and I am going to dissolve these two vertices. So that now if I press A, now you have a quad. Then I will come into face selection and I will press A to select everything and press F to fill it. Now in face selection mode I will select this face, then I will right click and choose subdivide. So now I have divided this into 4 pieces. I will press I, and as I am moving it I will press I again to actually scale it in individually. Okay, I will scale it out like this. I will just press E and slightly move it back like this. So I am going to add a little depth here. I will press tab and come to this door, and I will come into the modifier and I will remove the solidify modifier. Now if I come into the solid state, I will come in add modifier and I am going to add wireframe. So you are seeing this wireframe. I can adjust the thickness like this. I am going to leave it at 0.02, and then in this case I will switch off replace original so that I can see the backside plane also. Now if you can see, we have a door and we have a window. I will press numpad 1 and I will come in this view. I will press shift A, and in the mesh I am now going to add a UV sphere. Now I will press 7 and it is exactly at the center. Now I will move it here and I will press GZ and move it down, and numpad 3, and I will just place it exactly over the floor here. Press GZ, I will move it and place it on the floor. And now I will come into wireframe mode, see that toggle X-ray is on, and I will now press tab and come into edit mode, and in the vertex selection mode I will select all the vertices on the top, press X, and I am going to delete all these vertices. Now I will press Z and come into solid state, and now if you see, I have a structure like this kept at the center. So as of now this doesn't have any thickness. So again if I come here and enable face orientation, you can see the inside faces are all red. So here I am seeing a small part of the floor. So I will press GZ and I will slightly move it up like this. Now to add a face inside, again for this I will come in add modifier, generate, and I am going to add the solidify modifier, and I can adjust the thickness here and I can add some amount of thickness like this. I will come over here and I will switch off this face orientation. I will now press 1 and I will come over here and I am now going to press shift A and I am going to add some object here. Say for example, I am now going to create icosphere, and in subdivision I will make it 3 or 4 times. I will subdivide it more, and then I am now going to actually create a volume. I will press shift A and I am going to add a volume empty. So I have added a empty volume. Then for this empty volume I will come into add modifier, and in generate I will add mesh to volume, and then I am now going to come here and select the object, this icosphere. So once I select this, and if I switch off this icosphere here, you can now see that the volume is created here. So I will increase the density here. I will also make this vertex count a little more, like I will make it 75, and I can also change these values here and make this soft like this around 0.5, and I will also add another modifier here in deform, which is volume displace. So I will add this and I will click new, and in this list I am going to click on this image or movie, and I am now going to choose, for example, a marble texture. And now if I set the size and move it, so you can see now a volume is created here like this. So you can see the volume created. I can add turbulence here and I can make all this modification like this. I am now going to press Shift A and I am now going to create another UV sphere. I will scale it down, press GZ, move it and place it inside this like this, and selecting this I will come over here in the modifier, and in the add modifier in generate volume to mesh. So when I click on volume to mesh, I have to now select a object which has the volume. So I will click here and I am going to select the volume, and once I select it, you can see how this entire thing has got converted into a mesh. So I can even come here and enable smooth shading, and I am now going to get some structure like this. So I can also use this threshold, I can control this, I can change this adaptivity here value. See, I can change this adaptivity value and I can change the threshold, and as I change the threshold, this is going to change. And now I will press numpad 1. Now I can come here and select volume and I can press G and move it, and you can create these kind of structure here. I can even rotate it like this. I will rotate this volume like this, then press GZ and I will move it down. Finally, I will come here to file and I am going to now click save as, and I am going to name this as 04_06, and then I am going to call this as isometric room, and I am going to click save. Now one last generative, that is modifier that is left is triangulate. Now when we are using this object and when we want to use this in gaming softwares like Unity or Unreal, all game engine shaders supports only triangulate or triangle meshes. So they won't support, that is quads and n-gons. So for that reason, whenever you want to import any of the objects, say for example I have this object here and I want this to be sent to a game engine, means I have to come here, add modifier, and in generate you have one option called triangulate. And when I enable triangulate, to see this I have to now come over here and I have to enable this wireframe. So when I enable wireframe, you can see here if I switch off triangulate, all these are quads. But when I enable this triangulate, all the quad faces and n-gon faces have been converted into here as triangles. And now similarly I will come into this, the walls, and in this wall you have all quads here, and even for this if I come here, add modifier, generate, and if I click on triangulate, you can see all this has got converted into triangles. See, you can see all this is now a triangle. Now in triangulate, if you come down here, you have the quad method. You have shortest diagonal, Then you have beauty. Beauty means it will provide you the best kind of triangulation. Then the next you have is fixed. So this is fixed. So all the quads are equally divided into triangles, you can see here. Then the next option you have is fixed alternate, means the axis is going to get reversed. Then you have shortest diagonal, and the last option is longest diagonal. So these are different options we have in the quad method. And in the n-gon method, if you have an n-gon, how it will be converted. Right now here we doesn't have any n-gons here. We have now explored all the modifiers available under the generate section. And in our next session, we are going to come across all the modifiers, that is, we are going to understand the modifiers that come under the deform category.